Protect your wooden clarinet and get the most out of your reeds with Boveda two-way humidity control packs. Watch until the end of this video to learn more. Then head to bovedainc.com and use code Clarineat at checkout to save 10% on your next purchase of Boveda products. Welcome back to the Clarineat podcast. I'm your host, Sean Perrin, and I'm here today with the wonderful Jon Manasse. Now, Jon has one of those bios that is, one of the longest of the generation of clarinetists, I would say, that we have with us today. So I'm not going to be doing a full introduction, but definitely, if you are not familiar with his work, do check out some of his incredible recordings that are available. He's playing in numerous ensembles, and a very, very good interview with Ed Jaffe, actually, that already exists on YouTube. So today we're going to dive in a little bit to Jon's life and upbringing as a musician, how he has kept his family involved, and also how he keeps his community involved as part of being the artistic director for something called the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival, which he's not only playing in, but curating and all kinds of things. So Jon, welcome to the program.
Sean, it's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you for your kindness.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's actually been a couple of years of trying to get in touch, and those watching and listening will know that I usually do these interviews in kind of my home, but I now have this studio space, which I'm trying out. So in the comments of the video here, just let me know, how is this working? How's the sound? How's the video and stuff like that? If you have any comments, please do let me know below. But yeah, Jon, this is great. And I do want to push people towards that wonderful interview you had with Ed Jaffe. He's such a great interviewer, and you guys covered some really great ground. I don't want to completely overlap what he's done, but I do want to get a start, like your musical life. Where did it begin? How did you get into clarinet? And what's the story of the flat one on the wall behind you there?
Well, that was that flat one. Okay. That's my flat clarinet. Literally my flat clarinet. I haven't tried to play it, but it was a gift. It was
I love it.
A humorous gift. After I played a concert in New Mexico once, I guess they had a whole batch of these metal clarinets. Instead of throwing them out, they figured modern art, and they put them in a one of those things that crushes automobiles.
Oh wow!
And that's how it came out. So,
yeah, I was expecting a rock and roll story, after some concert.
That would have been fun.
That's a different story.
I know. Yeah. Well, my start with the clarinet was, I guess, sort of accidental. Actually, the truth is, I really didn't like the clarinet. I hadn't heard it played in any way that attracted me to it. I just wasn't exposed to it. The middle school band with squeaking and all this. But the saxophone was my love, and that's sort of a long story. And I guess, as you said, I maybe I covered it on Ed Jaffe's interview. But one thing led to another, and I was at a music shop in Manhattan, and the proprietor of that shop, Charlie Ponte, recommended to my father that I take clarinet lessons. And one thing led to another, and my first teacher actually was David Weber on clarinet. And I was 11, and he remained my teacher through Juilliard and a mentor until he passed away at age 93. So, and he had sent me to study with other people during the summers, including Jacques Lancelot in France, and I went to Aspen with Richard Waller, a lot of other musical clarinet influences also. And of course, my wonderful colleagues who I went to school with, who are renowned now anyway. So, yeah.
Amazing. So what was the turning point then? You said you kind of preferred saxophone.
The turning point was pretty much when I heard David Weber play. For the first time. It was something unlike I'd ever heard the clarinet sound. It was warm, ringing, round, bell-like, smooth, all the things we like about the clarinet, I think, that keep us striving to, just try to emit the most beauty from that instrument possible. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And it's so interesting how many people in my generation actually started on clarinet because they wanted to play saxophone. And I come from the age where it was really sadly because of The Simpsons. And I see this now with students though because of SpongeBob. It's kind of funny because
That's
these,
right.
these wind bands can never really have too many clarinets though. So it's never been a problem, the clarinets. But I remember when I was in school, like if you didn't already own and play the saxophone, you had to play, I think it was 1 to 2 years of clarinet first in order to kind of get at the saxophone. And by the time most people had played clarinet, they didn't really care anymore. They want to stick with that. But that's sort of how they prevented the onslaught of saxophone players. So was that kind of your inspiration? Was
Well,
something of the line for saxophone?
you have a good point. I don't know. I somehow fell in love with the saxophone. It was way before The Simpsons or anything like that. But you reminded me of something that it was sort of a popular belief amongst, I guess, educators that if you want to play the saxophone well, you should play the clarinet first because
Yeah.
yes, it's more difficult. But I wasn't having any of that at first, and then
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, I just threw a little tantrum when my father said, Mr. Ponte wants you to take clarinet lessons, and the way my father, who was a psychologist, made the inroads, at least have me agree to take a clarinet lesson, was to tell me that David Weber um, teaches at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
So that was the first opening. Like,
So
wow,
motivation. Yeah,
yeah, right,
yeah.
motivation. But I think for all of us in the clarinet world,
Yeah.
it 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 becomes it obviously chooses us,
Mm.
as cliche as that might sound, because um, it's an amazing life to devote yourself to blowing through that stick of wood, getting a little blade of grass to vibrate a certain way to um, satisfy that sort of utopian aesthetic we have in our heads of how we want it to sound and how that evolves over our life and the things we want to add to it, and you know um, what we want to share with it, and the ultimate goal is to, I think, enhance the lives, emotions, feelings, and I guess the deepest parts of people's personality through our playing. And I think
Mm.
that's what propels us. Um, and that's why I'm glad you mentioned the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival, because it's really in that. I think most of us would agree that chamber music is about the most ideal representation of what we do as musicians in terms of communication and sharing,
Mm.
and to experience, for an audience to experience the musicians communicating on that level in an intimate environment is, it's inexplicable what that does for, I mean, as you know, for playing that way, you can feel the energy from the audience,
Oh yeah.
um, that is integral to how you end up expressing yourself on stage with your colleagues. Um,
Yeah, it's so interesting because most people get their beginning with clarinet, especially we were talking about in bands or maybe in orchestras, usually bands though in the States, I would say. Um, and the chamber music often, for a lot of people, I don't even know if it ever comes, but if you go into post-secondary, you do get there. And I remember when I had the first experience with that too, I thought like, well, how could this possibly be as rewarding as those great pieces of band and orchestra music? But what I ended up finding is it's actually much more interesting in a way to be with such a small group of people diving into this. You're much more exposed. It's a lot harder at first, I felt anyway. But so kind of what's your opinion on that? Like how might we use a festival like this to not only bring more musicians into it, but more amateurs and more just the public even to come to these concerts that maybe aren't Chike 4 for the 20,000th time, but something a little more special and unique.
right. Well, yeah, you've touched on some really, really important and astute observations, and I bet if you were to ask many clarinet players what it was that actually compelled them to want to become professionals. A lot of people would say Brahms quintet, Mozart quintet, hearing these pieces played by great artists, there's something so just magically captivating about it. And when you see the reaction, experience the emotion from the audience after these performances, you realize these composers, and then if we've done our job really well as on stage, the colleagues in the performances communicate something that's really ineffable, but it's enough that they want to keep coming back. It is. I have never run into someone who said, "Wow, that was boring or uninteresting." Yeah. It's always like, "Wow, I didn't realize that." This is a great conversation. My sister, I love my sister. She's older, and she was never really into classical music. She was listening to hard rock and punk and everything else. Now she's in her 60s. She comes to my concert. She says, "I can't believe how beautiful that, the Mozart quintet. How do I?" And all of a sudden, this, we hear about the graying of audiences. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Because the next group of gray hairs will.
They're always coming.
They're always coming. And also, Sean, I want to point out something really fascinating. I mean, you and I were young, budding classical musicians at one time, and we teach them. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who love classical music who are very young. So it's a matter of making sure that people know these concerts are happening, making sure that these concerts are affordable and just available to these people. And once they know about it, and certainly once they have experienced it for the first time, it's not a hard sell.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your sister with I believe it was metal and rock or something you said.
Yeah.
And I think a realization that I had at some point too, because I've been a fan of a lot of bands too, like Radiohead and Talk Talk and other bands like this. But I had this realization at some point that, wait a minute, in a way, that's chamber music because there's, 4 to 6 people. And so you get into, Brahms quintet, or even I played the arrangement of Till Illenspiegel on my senior recital. And I also did L'Histoire de Soldat one time. And these are just really interesting pieces, but they're actually closer to rock and metal music than you might think for that reason.
What a great association you just made. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They're not full orchestras on stage. It's 4 or 5 guys, right?
Yeah, they're used to that interplay. They get to know the band members,
Yeah, It's just louder. That's all.
Yeah, right. We could change that. There's a couple groups, though. Do you know the Edmund Wells bass clarinet? I think it's a quartet.
Wow.
They've done a bunch of, it's like a heavy metal bass clarinet quartet, and I'll have to send you a link after if you're not familiar with it, for your sister.
Great, and that's what I like. It's not, to think of chamber music as the form of chamber music we're talking about, classical, Mozart, Brahms, all the, we have the Imani Winds, we have all sorts of diverse repertoire that comes to this festival. And what I like is music is music.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have to be that separate now. We have a jazz ensemble coming this year. That too is chamber music, always has been.
Yeah.
So I think, although it's called the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival, it's a Cape Cod festival that features smaller ensembles.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're performing a few works. It looks like some Brahms and also this sort of family concert, which I find very interesting, because those who listen to the show the past 10 years have known that my life is went from being pretty much a kind of I graduated my degree and I was freelancing, kind of what's next, and so I started the podcast. Long story, but now I've got 2 kids, and I've been talking with other people on the podcast too, like James Campbell, who his son became a professional guitarist, and And I just find it so fascinating to kind of hear this sort of the family side of it too, and how that can be inspired through generations. So I was very interested to learn that one of the pieces you're playing, or one of the concerts, it looks like, is called A Family Affair, and you've got multiple family members performing with you. And how cool is that? So can you tell me a bit
Oh,
about that's the ultimate chamber music, really?
yeah, it it is really cool. It's, I guess what took a couple decades for something like that to fall in my lap, but
Yeah.
it promises to be a really special day. Of course, my son is a wonderful clarinetist. I tried everything early on to try to dissuade him from playing when he was 4 or 5 years old, tugging on me. I
Yeah.
want to play. I said, no, you don't want to. So I set up an E flat clarinet with an easy mouthpiece for him, and he got the first beautiful open G double lip. I was like, oh no,
Wow.
here we go again. So anyway, he graduated Juilliard. He plays all over. He played with the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. He plays in the Met. He plays in New York. Anyway, he's a wonderful player and a great person. I'm also I have two nephews. There's another nephew who couldn't make it, who's a horn player, Nathaniel. Nathaniel Silberschlag is the principal horn of the Cleveland Orchestra. Zachary Silberschlag is my nephew. Also, he's in the Israel Philharmonic trumpet. Julian Schwarz is my brilliant cello playing nephew, and his wife is pianist on that program. And it occurred to me when I was arranging this concert, although Nathaniel couldn't be there, there was a period at Juilliard where I would be walking down the hall and I'd hear, Dad, Uncle John. It was,
Yeah,
people would look. So, yeah, it's a really varied program too, which is great. Of course, we couldn't. I will be playing on that program along with John Nakamatsu, my co-artistic director, and we will be playing. I'm sure you know the history of it. One of the Mendelssohn concert pieces, which was composed for a father and son duo. It was composed for Heinrich and Karl.
yeah.
And I love. Do you know the story about it? It's a great story.
Let's go over it for the listeners.
It's a great story. So Mendelssohn. It's interesting though that these composers like Mozart and Brahms and Weber and Spohr all had their clarinet muses, who inspired them to write. It was like Hermstedt
Yeah.
for Spohr and Heinrich Behrmann for Weber and Stadler for Mozart and Mulfeld for Brahms. In this case, Mendelssohn had heard of the Behrmann father and son, Heinrich and Karl, and they became friends mostly because of, I guess, both Karl and Heinrich were very good chefs.
Hmm.
And Mendelssohn said, you know what? You come over to my house, bake me your apple dumplings. I'll go upstairs and write you a piece, and we'll see who finishes first. So he wrote that first concert piece under those conditions. And I think there's a humorous part to the story where when they knocked on the door, Mendelssohn answered and immediately put an apron on Karl and sent him to
Right away.
So the story goes that Mendelssohn played the piano after dinner, and they read through the first concert piece.
Wow. Yeah.
So we thought that was
What a piece to include. Yeah. Great
be a
idea.
nice include, and then to then for me to get to watch and hear my nephews interact with each other. Also on that program is a longtime festival favorite violinist, Carmit Zori. So we consider her family festival.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With this backstory, though, there's a bit of a problem with the program. Like, where are the apple dumplings? I mean,
Now there you go. We should promise that. But,
serve an intermission, I guess. Yeah.
Thinking about this, Okay, well, it definitely puts it in perspective. I've changed the diapers of three of the people on that program.
When you put it like that, yeah. Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
yeah, it's pretty special. It's music is just it's always there. My other two kids are my wife is a musician, and it's all it's about the best thing for this planet I can imagine is music,
Well,
right?
it's
There's
funny the
no
way you
fight.
mentioned it.
Yeah,
Yeah, the way you mentioned it though was with your I think it was your son and the clarinet. I mean, I had that same experience with my daughter. I At some point she saw me playing or whatever, and even though she was only like 3 or 4 years old, I just passed her the mouthpiece and I held it for her. And same thing, I was expecting a big squawk because that's what normally happens in the lessons, but out came this beautiful G. I was like, oh
right.
no, same
Oh,
thing. And I was like, come
right.
over here, let's play with the doctor kit. Let's
That
let's let's do something else. Isn't there an engineering thing around here you can some?
right.
But yeah, they're
No,
both quite drawn to the, piano or the guitar or the
yeah,
clarinet, not so much yet, but they're still young,
yeah,
so
yeah.
we'll see.
That's okay. It's the I hate using the cliche, but really, I mean, for the enormous discipline that it is to play, um, there's some other part within all of us, this the shared aesthetic, the shared love for it, that um, keeps us so engaged and so striving as a lifelong endeavor. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a rare person who, starts off with music and just forgets about it.
right,
But strangely enough, I do know a couple, and I've always wondered how that happened. Like I knew one guy who did all the degrees and everything and auditions for years, and suddenly one day just sold the tuba and became a sushi chef, and I don't think he's ever touched it again.
right.
And but those stories seem kind of few and far between, and most people once
Well,
they kind of catch that bug, it's generations long, like you're saying. I mean, it's
it could be, and the reality is that learning a musical instrument at a young age is this has been verified by the best neurologists in the world that it is basically the height of brain delicacy in terms of sensory input and motor response.
yeah, yeah,
That whatever you end up doing in life, um, learning, studying, practicing a musical instrument does things for the brain that no other discipline on the planet does. Right?
yeah,
If you consider the layers of multitasking involved of what we do,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
just operating the instrument, not you know, not to mention the level of communication that we're talking about in um, chamber
Chamber
music.
playing, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
playing in an orchestra, doing all these things. The the things that you need to master on the instrument to have them become literally a reflex. Um, so
Like
people talk about
a
yeah,
natural part of what you do. Like it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
an extension of your
So,
body.
right, right. So anyway, yeah,
Well, exactly what you said, though. It's funny because in Canada here, I don't know if it's existing in the States, but we have this new focus now on STEM education, which is like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And a lot of schools are like pigeonholing kind of this. This is their main focus. It's their only focus. And I remember back to a conversation I had with an engineering professor at the U of C, who's also a professional horn player. And remarkable mind on that guy. Daryl Caswell is his name. But anyway, he was saying that in his engineering classes, he can always tell who the musicians were because they're the ones who can get up in front of the class, make a presentation. They have better social skills. They have better imagination skills. They're in the end, they're the better engineers. And it's such a shame to me to be saying we're not going to have music because we're focusing on science and whatever else. I mean, these are all part of our culture and society, and it's just so sad.
oh, Sean, you've really highlighted some extremely important and lucid arguments about this. It shouldn't be an argument, but my daughter, who was a brilliant violinist, is now going into medicine, and you find that many doctors uh, are either amateur musicians, at one time were musicians, or they love classical music. And that little quote I mentioned about playing a musical instrument being the height of brain delicacy, that is literally a quote from my wife's neurosurgeon, Dr.
Wow.
Sadi Khan, that he said to us once he learned, what our professions were. And so that is the chief neurosurgeon at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York saying that.
Wow.
I love the fact that you mentioned, yeah, well, this guy's a sushi chef or whatever it is, where he used to play the tuba. I have had some students continue to play and also go into other disciplines, like, for example, running a multi-million-dollar tea company, for example.
Wow.
And this individual, when I spoke to her, she says, you know what? When she goes into a meeting, she is not cowed, she is not intimidated, because she knows that none of them have any idea what it feels like to walk on stage and play the Nielsen Concerto from memory. But
Yeah.
like whatever she's about to do pales in comparison to that type of negotiating.
Yeah.
And you said it perfectly. All the other layers of humanity and personal growth that come from dedicating yourself to bettering yourself on a musical instrument encompass everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such an important discussion. And even bringing, I was going to ask your thoughts on this. I'm not really sure if this would be an area of specialty or interest for you, but because you're planning these kind of high level events and the Cape Cod Music Festival, for example, but also, you're performing as well. The recordings are such, you're working with incredible musicians. How can we bring more kind of chamber music to, let's say, the high school or junior high level? Or do you think it's possible, it's too early, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not, I'm thinking right away of my son Jordan, who's a brilliant pianist. He's 17 now, but he has been, from late single digit age playing chamber music. There's a New York youth organization here that puts groups together. I think isn't it important what you mentioned, to try to start that early so they can really experience what that's like. I mean, people get little combos together.
Yeah.
Earlier,
Jazz, I suppose, is maybe a great way, but I'm just realizing now, I don't know why, but I was thinking about the repertoire, and there's all this sort of band repertoire, and people like it in varying degrees or whatever, and in a way, no one really truly loves a grade one band piece in the same way as some great orchestral work, but the kids, that's all they can play.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find myself thinking, like, where is the repertoire that's aimed for like student level horn quintet? Maybe wind quintet. Maybe it exists and I'm just not aware of it, but that would be an interesting, like, for commissions or something even, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, you probably have many viewers who are, we have such brilliant educators on all these different levels, and I'm certain there are things where they can, arrange, but and anything we can do to inspire these young minds to
play, I guess,
to become, absorbed, immersed, or even just curious about it is enough.
And do you think that this whole event would be something that you'd invite all ages to, and to enjoy the concerts? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we see a lot of young people at these concerts.
We mentioned the graying hair, but I'm sure there's a lot of other interest.
There are a lot of, I mean, those gray-haired people bring their kids and grandkids. So
yeah. Gray hair, if you're lucky. My hair is going away hair.
Yeah, that's
right.
It doesn't. hair is not a prerequisite for attending the concerts.
That's good to know. That's good to know. So how can
Yeah.
people learn more about this? We've got your website. Is there still applications open to perform or maybe for next year, or how does that work?
No, in terms of performing, we, John Nakamatsu and I are the co-artistic directors, and we start sort of brainstorm even a year out of what, what the next season will look like. And I mean, we're always up for anybody contacting us with ideas for
Is it
sure.
fully curated then, or do you accept applications?
Well, no,
A little bit of
no
both.
real patients. It's just there are managers who contact us to try to
Oh, I see.
have us interested in their artists or whatever, and we're always looking to expand and do great things or new things, and also pay attention to these favorites through the I don't know, decades and centuries of music that people really love and want to hear. So we try to keep a very good balance of that, and the main thing is what we have found since we've been doing it, and it's, I think John and I have been artistic directors since 2006 or 2007. That the audiences come away feeling enriched and return bringing their friends and everyone else. So the feeling that we have is particularly satisfying in that we feel that the community actually feels a sense of ownership of this festival. It's theirs, and we're just sort of serving them by curating these concerts, as you say.
So this, of course, is an international show, and you kind of have it in the community there, but does it spread out online at all? Is there an online element people can tune in at?
Well, no, we're
Post-COVID
starting.
world, or?
There's the website, Cape Cod chambermusic.org.
There it is.
And yeah, this is this year's brochure where it's our 45th season. So, but
do you record or rebroadcast any of it later for people to tune in?
Of course, during the pandemic, we tried to do some shows and stuff, but we are in the process of trying to put together, and there might be some stuff up there already, past performances and stuff like that people can tune into.
It sounds so easy, but to do it right adds such a level of production. You can't just set up an iPhone. I mean, want to get good audio and good video, and I mean, it's a whole other level, I imagine, of getting that set up. So I mean, it'd be nice to tune in, but I understand if it's also a more intimate kind of, that used to be the thing. That's one problem I have since COVID is there's so much now that people are like, well, I don't really have to be there. I can just watch it on Zoom and it's something about actually going to these events,
That you said it. There's more than just something about it, but that's a great start. I like that you say something about it. It's experience. You know what? The other thing we love about this, people have been planning their vacations around this festival. So they'll come to the Cape and enjoy the great beaches, the seafood, everything else. And then instead of going to Lincoln Center, it's sort of been our charge to bring Lincoln Center to the Cape.
Well, if I think of any performance I've traveled to see or any conference I've been to or anything like that, it's always, if I think back, the first thoughts I have are about, the people I met and the things I saw and the things that were maybe different and like the sweltering heat in Texas or whatever. Like they just pop into your head. It's part of the experience,
Thank you for pointing that out, of course. I mean, yes, we'd like to think that the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival is the center of Cape Cod's existence, but we know better than that. But it's really a magnificent place to have a vacation, to bring your family, and to hear incredible music. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program today. I really am so happy to have the chance to not only talk to you, but also learn about this whole festival and what you're planning. And I do encourage anyone not only to check out the Cape Cod Chamber Music website, but also your website, jonmanasse.com, where, of course, you can find Like,
I think it's under construction.
well, it's looking okay to me today,
Oh,
but
okay.
there's something there anyway. It might be under a new construction. I'm not sure, but and of course, you can head on to Spotify and stream the music there as well. But is there a better way to support the music if people want to check out recordings that you have? I mean, just I guess buying CDs, but can that be done
Yes,
directly or?
yeah, I'm again not up to speed with all that stuff. What anywhere you can find it, find it. And I know that people post things of me on YouTube. I don't have control over it, so be gentle in your criticism of it. I don't know.
Fair enough. Okay. Is there anything you want to kind of touch on before we go today that I didn't ask, or do you have any questions for me?
No, I just have enormous gratitude and appreciation for you for doing this, for giving the world, this perspective of getting to know people and what they do and how they do it, and it's really I applaud you, Sean, and I thank you so
Thanks,
much.
thank you. I really appreciate that. Well,
Yeah.
it's great chatting with you today. And again, for those listening, head on over to the Clarineat website where you can check out any links that may be for this episode or the show notes, I guess. Now we're doing it on YouTube. That's right. I'm forgetting what we're doing these days. It's now on YouTube, so that'll be in the description below. But I'll put links to the Chamber Music Festival and also to John's website and some recordings down there. So thank you so much to Jon for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, Sean. Have a great day. Thanks so much.
The Clarineat podcast is brought to you in part by one of my favorite products ever, Boveda two-way humidity control packs. I live in a super dry and cold climate in Canada, and so taking care of my instruments is a real challenge. However, it's effortless with Boveda. Every 3 months, I just replace the Boveda pack in my case, and I know my clarinets will be comfy and cozy inside. If you use cane reeds, there's also a mini version that fits inside most reed cases and keeps your reeds at their best, so they're ready to play when you are. Check out Boveda's offerings for clarinetists at bovedainc.com and use code Clarineat at checkout to save 10% on your next purchase. Click the link in the description below to learn more.